Paramahamsa Namaste. Bora Karuna Swarupaya Radha Krishna Prasayate.
Namo Sidhesvarupananda.
Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Haribo Nitai Gaur Nitai Gaur Haribo Haribo Nitai Gaur Nitai Gaur Haribo
Hari Nitai Gaur Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Nitai Gaur Hari
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahe Anya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahe Anya. Haribo.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nayanya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nayanya
Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nahe Anya, Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nahe Anya.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nayanya, Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nayanya.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya, sorry, I lost track. I couldn't hear what you were chanting. Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Haribo.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Haribo.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Haribo.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Haribo.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Haribo.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare. Didn't get that one.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya, Gora Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Bol.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Jaya Chandra Jaya, Gaur Gaur Bhaktivinoda.
Jaya Jaya SIDDHASWARUPANANDA PARAMHAMSA. Jaya Jaya SIDDHASWARUPANANDA PARAMHAMSA.
Jaya Jaya SIDDHASWARUPANANDA. Jaya Paramahamsa.
Jaya Jaya Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Jaya Jaya Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev.
Jaya Jaya Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Jaya Jaya Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev.
Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivrajakacarya Astatersha Tashishimat Jagadguru SIDDHASWARUPANANDA Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
Krishna Padaya Krishna Krishna
Haribol, Haribol.
SIDDHASWARUPANANDA Paramhamsa Shri Krishna Chaitanya Krishna Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna. Haribol everybody, let us welcome our friend SIDDHASWARDAS, Sir SIDDHASWARDAS. Haribol.
Haribol. Haribol.
Namaste, SIDDHASWARDAS.
Let me first offer my humble obeisances at the lotus feet of my spiritual masters. Namo SIDDHASWARUPANANDA PARAMHAMSA Namine Gaura Karuna Swarupaya Radha Krishna Prastayate. Namaste Saraswati Devam Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya De Satarine Vanchakalpatribhyascha Kripasindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanevya Vaishnavebhya Namo Namaha. Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Thank you very much. Thank you, Bala. Welcome. Welcome to another edition of Bhagavad Gita. As we look into chapters 7 and 8, hopefully you'll find something there that will enlighten or enliven you, or both. I was very amazed that our last talk, after we had only about, between 20 and 30 people come and see the talk live, it seems, according to Congregational Kirtan's Facebook page, more than 500 devotees or whatever came and saw the replay. So that was amazing. So hopefully, even though we start off small, we'll still be able to reach out with our Sankirtan. Now, you may recall in the previous chapters that Krishna discussed Bhakti Yoga and Karma Yoga, and he looked into, he talked to Arjuna about so many things, but he talked about the Eightfold Yoga system, and he talked about mystic transcendentalists attaining the kingdom of God. And he talked about controlling the mind and how difficult that is and how one can do it. And And he talked about the difference between a yogi and an ascetic, an empiricist, and basically said that bhaktas, those who practice bhakti, were true yogis. And again and again and again and again and again and again, it's amazing how you can read Bhagavad Gita and get totally the wrong thing out of it. Again, going back to when I first read Bhagavad Gita, what I took away from it was that I should engage in the Eightfold Path and Atharva, Ashtanga yoga, and I should sit in the forest with my neck straight and my back straight, and trying to control my mind and my senses and so on and so forth, until I met my spiritual master, who finally opened my eyes and explained to me. But when as a devotee, as a bhakta, as a disciple of a true spiritual master, you read it, Krishna says in every chapter, he says, the devotee, those who are devoted to me, will achieve me, will attain to me. He talks about the value of devotion. He explains many, many things, but he talks again and again and again and again about the value of devotion. Now, in the 7th chapter, Krishna first explains that he is the supreme truth, that everything in existence is a combination of his material and spiritual energies, that he is the active principle within all and is all pervasive, and through his diverse material and spiritual energies, he pervades everything. Now I see, Bala, I see that I'm going in and out of focus again. I don't know why. I thought we fixed that, but you just have to bear with it, I guess, guys. He says that because the world's activities are conducted by the 3 modes of material nature, which emanate from him, although Krishna is independent and above them. So the world's activities are really nothing more than interaction of the 3 modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. This is what make up the world's activities, according to Krishna. Only those who surrender to me, Krishna says, can cross beyond these modes and know him. Specifically, Krishna says, out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection. And out of those who have achieved perfection, out of all of those who have endeavored and finally achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. So this is not an easy thing. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami says in his purport that although non-devotees like impersonalists, so-called yogis and empiricists declare that the path of bhakti or devotional service is really very easy, yet they cannot practice it. If the path of bhakti, he says, is so easy, as this non-devotee class of men proclaim, then why do they take up the more difficult path? Oh, it's too easy. Bhakti's too easy. No, I want to suffer. I want to sacrifice. I want to, lie down in the midst of a fire and whatever. Why would they take up the more difficult path, he asks. Actually, he says the path of bhakti is not easy. If it were, these guys would actually be doing it. The so-called path of bhakti practiced by unauthorized persons like Sahajas. They claim to be bhaktas, but they completely pervert the whole philosophy of bhakti yoga. These people claim, without any real knowledge of bhakti, they say that it may be easy. But when true sadhana bhakti is practiced factually, according to the rules and regulations laid down by a spiritual master and in the scriptures, the speculative scholars and philosophers fall away. Srila Rupa Goswami writes in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that devotional service of the Lord that ignores the authorized Vedic literatures like the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Purana, and other Puranas, the Narada Pancharatra, and so forth, is simply an unnecessary disturbance in society. It is not possible for the Brahman realized impersonalist or even the Paramatma realized yogi to understand Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the son of Mother Yashoda, and the charioteer of Arjuna. So Bhaktivedanta Swami is saying very clearly here that you may understand, you may have experienced Brahman realization. You may even have experienced the Lord in the heart, the Paramatma realization. But this is nowhere near actual knowing Krishna. The four kinds of impious souls, he says, never surrender to Krishna, while there are four kinds of pious souls who do surrender. Krishna also covers himself from the impersonalists who are less intelligent and from those who surrender to the demigods. But those who are truly pious, the undiluted, serve Krishna as the governor of the material manifestation. The demigods and sacrifice, and only those that know this and understand Krishna can understand Krishna even at the time of death. The undiluted serve Krishna as governor of the whole material manifestation, as governor of the demigods, and as governor of sacrifice. Only these people who understand this truly understand Krishna even at the time of death. Now, Krishna goes on to explain, this is still chapter 7, his inferior and superior energies, saying that existence itself rests in him. O Arjuna, he says, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. He is that thread. If you have a pile of pearls, they have no value as a necklace or any kind of jewelry until you string them together. And it is Krishna who's doing the stringing with himself as the thread. Without Krishna, there would be nothing. In this verse in particular, it is stressed that the absolute truth is a person, that the personality of Godhead is the supreme absolute truth, and is also the affirmation of Brahma Samhita, stating that the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, is Lord Krishna, who is the primeval Lord, the reservoir of all pleasure, Govinda, and he is the eternal form of complete bliss and knowledge. These authorities and others leave no doubt that the absolute truth is the supreme person, the cause of all causes. Now, I put this picture next to me on this particular class because a lot of times when we read Bhagavad Gita, it's difficult for us to think of Krishna, the charioteer, the driver of Arjuna, you know, telling these things. We tend to think that, yeah, he's Krishna, but he represents this greater, more grander phenomenon of, you know, this grandiose, humongous God, or Vishnu in this case. And yet he's very, very clear. Prabhupada is very clear that Krishna is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he is all these things, yes, but he is himself as well. Krishna goes on to describe some of his manifestations. He says in text 8, I am the taste of water. I am the light of the sun and the moon. I am the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. I am the sound in ether and the ability in man. He says, I am the original fragrance of the earth, and I am the heat in fire. I am the life of all that lives, and I am the penances of all the ascetics. Know that I am the original seed of all existences, the intelligence of the intelligent, and the prowess of all powerful men. What do you get out of this? He says he's all these wonderful things. He is the taste in water, and yet most of us aren't even, you know, what is that? Water has no taste. But yes, it does. And he is that taste. He is the light of the sun and the moon, the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. What does this mean to us? Well, in this way, he is revealing to Arjuna and to you and you and you and you some of the many ways that we can meditate upon him by seeing him in so many apparently mundane things. Revealing these various manifestations, he enables those who are sincere to see him in every time they drink water, every time they smell the earth. Boy, I tell you, you go out to a farm and you smell the earth. It's amazing. It really is an unusual and very unique scent. So the devotee sees wonder and beauty and Krishna in everything, because in this way, Krishna says, you can meditate upon me by understanding that I am these things. He goes on to say that all states of being, whether they be goodness, passion, or ignorance, are manifest by my energy. I am, in one sense, everything. But I am independent of all of this. I am not under the modes of material nature. He is the cause of the modes of material nature. He controls the modes of material nature, but he is not under the control of these modes of material nature. Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami says, by the spell of this illusory energy, we consider ourselves only in the light of this bodily concept of life. And thus we think, I'm American, I'm Filipino, I'm Russian or Christian or Hindu or Muslim or whatever. And when we become entangled in these modes of material nature, we then forget all about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. that same Supreme Personality of Godhead who is behind all of these modes of nature. So Lord Krishna says that men who are deluded by these three modes of nature do not understand that behind the material background is Krishna, the Supreme Godhead. Krishna then says again and again and again, over and over in so many ways, that while material nature may be very difficult to overcome, those who have surrendered at Krishna's feet find it easy to cross beyond this ocean of nescience, these three gunas. This is in text 14, 17, 18, and 19. He says this again and again and again in so many different ways. Then he talks about the worship of the demigods, which is, by its very nature, a give and take relationship. You give me your adoration, the demigod says, and I will grant so many of your material desires in so many ways. And he says that people who worship the demigods do not understand that these favors are in reality granted only by him. Now you may wonder, well, I thought Indra was in charge of the lightning and Vayu was in charge of the wind, but all of this goes on in accordance to Krishna's permission. Vayu can't give anybody a boon, nor can Indra, without Krishna being in the background. Even sometimes they don't realize it. He concludes by saying, those who worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods. But my devotees, again, talking about devotional service, my devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet. He then explains again how it's impossible for materialists who are blinded by material nature to know him. But then he concludes the whole chapter by saying, those who know me as the Supreme Lord, as the governing principle of the material manifestation, who know me as the one underlying all the demigods and as the one sustaining all sacrifices, can, with steadfast mind, understand and know me even at the time of death. This, again and again, he points out the beauty of devotional service, saying it'll overcome death, saying that only those who are engaged in devotion can know or understand him, can attain his abode. Again and again and again, Krishna says, well, you can do this, or you can do that, or you can worship the demigods, or you can become, a materialist. But if you want to know me, this is how you can do it. And when you think about it, it really all has to do with your mind. Focusing your mind on Krishna. And he reveals this in chapter 8 very clearly. Focusing your mind on Krishna, chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, making offerings, engaging in sadhana bhakti. These are methods by which our mind is trained, focused, gradually focused on Krishna and not on the material manifestation. This is the importance of what he's saying. In chapter 8, it begins by Arjuna asking Krishna about Brahman, the self, karma, the demigods, the material world, and so forth, and knowing Krishna at the time of death. Krishna first briefly answers Arjuna's first 5 questions about all these different things, but then he begins to explain in detail how one can know Krishna at the time of death. Krishna says, and whoever at the time of death quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this, there is no doubt. Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami explains that because whatever the mind fixes itself on at the time of death, that is the place we go. That's where we go. Whatever our mind is fixed on at the time of death, that's where we go. So therefore, it's extremely important that we fix our mind on Krishna. He uses the example of Maharaj Bharat. Maharaj Bharat, when he renounced the world, he was a king, he renounced the world, went to sit by the side of a stream, wore just a loincloth, lived in a little, like a little cave or a little tent or something, and tried to fix his mind on Krishna. But instead, he ended up fixing his mind on a deer. He rescued a deer whose mother had died. He rescued a deer when it was just a foal who was about to drown in the river. And he rescued it, he took it in, he fed it, and he got very attached to it. And when Maharaj Bharat was dying, the deer came up to him and looked him in the eye, and Maharaj Bharat was like looking this deer in the eye and thinking, how will he get along without me? How here I am dying and I'm not taking care of this deer. How will he survive? How will he? So when he actually died, all he was thinking about, all his mind was fixed on, was this poor little deer. I hope you guys all know that story. I assume you do. If you don't, I'll talk about it later. You can ask about it. We'll talk about it later. But that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Bhaktivedanta then says that is what sadhana bhakti is all about. Especially, one should chant the Hare Krishna mantra, fixing your mind upon Krishna. And whoever at the time of death quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this, there is no doubt. Since one attains what we remember at the time of death, if we remember Krishna, we go to Krishna. Krishna then explains how he can be constantly thought of as the transcendental person who knows everything, who is the oldest, the controller, the smallest, the maintainer. And thus, by practicing yoga and remembering Krishna, Krishna goes on to explain that one will go to the eternal spiritual world and never again return to this temporary, miserable material world. He says, in text 7, he says, therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me, and your mind and intelligence fixed upon me, you will attain me without doubt. So, even though there's so much wonderment in so many ways to Krishna, even though he is Vishnu, he is the supreme controller of everything, even though he is in charge of everything, even though he is at the crux of the three modes of material nature that make material activities. All material activities are some combination of these three modes of nature. Nevertheless, he doesn't say concentrate on me as the universal form. He doesn't say concentrate on me as Sri Vishnu or Narayan, the controller of everything, da 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 da. No. He says, think of me as Krishna. He says, he who meditates upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, he, O Partha, is sure to reach me. That's text 8. Again, he gives Arjuna so many ways that we can meditate upon him. He says one should meditate upon the Supreme Person as one who knows everything, as he who is the oldest, who is the controller, who is smaller than the smallest, who is the maintainer of everything, and who is beyond all material conception, who is inconceivable, and who is always a person. He is luminous like the sun, being transcendental. He is beyond this material nature. That's text 9. Then, after describing all the various yogic ways in which one can leave this world, he says, one who at the time of death fixes his life air between the eyebrows and in full devotion engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord. One who utters Omkara and who are great sages in the renounced order. They enter into Brahman. Desiring such perfection, they practice celibacy. And he goes on to explain this path, closing all the doors of the senses and fixing one's mind on the heart and the life air at the top of the head. He establishes himself in yoga through pranayama, by bringing the life air up through the top of his head. So he describes, again, this different way, this different method of yoga, this Atharva or Astanga yoga. Krishna advises Arjuna, however, later on, after saying all of that, he says, don't worry about any of these other paths that I've just described to you, either Vedic study or Astanga yoga, severe sacrifices, charity, jnana, karma, for the results of these will be obtained, again I repeat, for the results of these will be obtained through performing devotional service. The results of all these different things that you can do, sitting in a solitary place, and meditating on Omkara, fixing the life air between your eyebrows, all these things, they will all be obtained through the performance of devotional service. At the point of all of that different practice that were very valuable in previous ages, but have no real value now. The point of it all is to remember Krishna, which is what the bhakta is doing all the time, whether he's in a solitary place or whether he's in town buying some bhoga for prasadam. And in the end, such a bhakti yogi in devotion reaches the supreme eternal abode. So really, it's all about remembering, focusing our mind and remembering Krishna. He then tells Arjuna about cosmic material and spiritual nature. He talks about the day and the night of Brahma. He says, Brahma's day is manifest and multitude of living entities come into being. And at the arrival of Brahma's night, they are all annihilated. But then he says, yet there is another nature, a nature which is eternal and transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It is the supreme and is never annihilated. When all in this world is annihilated, that part remains as it is, because that is my supreme abode. Then Krishna tells Arjuna about which times of day are the best for leaving the body. Daytime, nighttime, when there's fire and the moon and so on and so forth. But then he says that For a devotee, these things really don't matter. So this is why the Bhagavad Gita is really only understandable by devotional service, because he describes all these other paths, all these other, things that get people wound up in, oh my gosh, I've got to fix it so that I die at the right time. I've got to fix it so that I can sit alone in the forest and straighten my spine, even though I've got scoliosis, and I've got to, do so many things. But then he says, for a devotee, it doesn't matter. He says, the devotees who know these two paths, O Arjuna, are never bewildered. The day or the night, or what's auspicious, what isn't auspicious. Therefore, be always fixed in devotion. And the end of the chapter, he says, a person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, or performing austere sacrifices, or giving in charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. In the end, the devotee attains the supreme abode. So that's the sum and substance of chapter 7 and 8 of Bhagavad Gita. It's, to me, it's just so clear. Every verse, every chapter that I read in Bhagavad Gita, how much Krishna is hitting on the idea that you can do this. There are so many things you can do. But if you are devoted to me, you don't have to do any of that stuff. You can just come to me. Again and again and again and again, he says this. And Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami says, this is the path of sadhana. The chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra is the most important aspect of that path. Of all the different methods of devotional service, the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra focuses the mind on Krishna. Even as, in so many ways, this sadhana bhakti is such a wonderful, perfect way to focus the mind on Krishna. I mean, the ascetic will fast for weeks on end, and some I've seen some that say that they have not eaten for years, and they've been able to control their life air, and they've been able to do this, and this. But devotee simply gets foodstuffs and offers it to Krishna. He's not worried about committing austere sacrifices and going out in the forest and building fires around him so that he can meditate in the blazing sun with 4 or 5 fires around him, or doing any of these austere practices that some people would say, well, you have to do that. That's yoga. But Krishna is very, very clear again and again and again and again that you can meditate on me. You can give your life to me. You can always think of me. Think of me when you taste water. Think of me when you eat food. Think of me when you chant my name. Think of me when you smell the ground that the food is being grown in. Think of me when you see a cow. Think of me when you do so many things. When he is the strength in strong men. He's the light of the sun and the moon. We can think of him in so many ways and fix our mind on Krishna, focus our mind on Krishna. And that's what it's all about. Controlling the mind. And you don't control it by yelling at it. You don't control it by beating it. You don't control it by starving it to death. You control it by focusing in so many ways on Krishna. Thank you very much. Chanting the Hare Krishna mantra is the core of it all. Are there any questions? You can open your microphone if you like, or I see there's somebody here that's in the chat. I don't know if that's a question or not. Okay, no question yet. All right.
Namaste.
Namaste, soul.
What is the Eightfold Yoga System and why was it called a system?
What is the Eightfold Yoga System and why is it called the Yoga System? That's sadhana bhakti. I mean, that's, I'm sorry, that's Ashtanga. Ashtanga Yoga is the Eightfold Path. System, and why is it called the Yoga System? This Eightfold Path is delineated in the Puranas. I think it was by Bali to his mother or something like that. I'm not that familiar with it because I really wasn't very interested in the Ashtanga Yoga System, but my understanding of it is that, you know, it has to do with, you know, first you engage in exercises, and then you learn how to sit the right way, and then you have to learn how to engage your body in certain ways. You do certain times of fasting. The various different practices. Ultimately, you want to bring the life air from the base of your spine up through the chakras and out through the top of the head. And very, very difficult. Takes hundreds and hundreds of years to perfect. This, interestingly enough, according to the teacher of Ashtanga Yoga, the ultimate result is devotion. Even after all of that, the ultimate result is devotion to the Supreme Godhead. So, does that answer your question? Yes? Is that, yeah, we're good? Okay. Okay, Haribol. I wish I'm sorry, I've not had any interest in it. Didn't occur to me that somebody would ask me about it. I should have done more research, but maybe next time I can tell you a little bit more about it. I've never studied it, to be honest with you. Namaste, someone says here, Congregational Kirtan. How can someone attain and follow the right way of the law and rules of Sri Krishna at the same time without anything attached to the fruits of material desire? Okay, says Priscilla is asking this. Attain and follow the right way. Well, you know, if you follow the four regulative principles, the four don'ts, you know, don't eat meat, don't gamble, don't engage in illicit sex life, and don't take intoxicants. You start there, and then there's the different manners of devotional service. That the sadhana bhakti is what brings you into this right path. This is the things that you can do. You should offer your food. You should chant Hare Krishna. You should chant so many rounds on your beads according to the instructions of your guru. You should accept a guru. You should find a guru and beg initiation from him. In this way, by following these principles of sadhana bhakti, we can fix our mind on Krishna. Chanting his holy names is one of the strongest ways, but every time you make food, You know, don't make it for yourself. It is in the intention that we focus our mind on Krishna. Oh, I'll make this so wonderful for Krishna. He's going to like it so much. We make our food. When we buy our food, oh, look at that. Oh, that's a beautiful papaya. Krishna will like that. Everything, and it's not pretend. It's not like you're playing house and pretending that, oh, you know, Krishna's going to have it, but actually, you know, I'm going to eat it. No, it is understanding that it was Krishna's in the first place. It all belongs to Krishna. And as human souls, or souls in a human body, we have the unique opportunity to be able to offer, to manipulate the material energy and offer it to Krishna. It's his already, but offering it pleases him because he made it for us, but when we offer it back to him, he blesses it. Every time we offer prasadam, it becomes non-different from Krishna. When you take prasadam, you have Krishna right there in your food. Your food takes on, it's just like, it's explained that it's like putting an iron in a hot fire. If you put an iron in a hot fire for a long time, eventually the iron, which is not like fire at all, takes on the characteristics of fire. You can burn anything. You can burn with you stick the iron on your wall, you can burn through the wall. You stick the hot iron on an animal, you can brand an animal. It takes on the characteristics. Just so when we eat prasadam, when we offer our foodstuffs to Krishna, it takes on, it becomes as one with Krishna. And we become purified simply by taking this foodstuffs that was offered to Krishna in so many ways. Sadhana is a step by step by step by step process of how you can focus your mind on Krishna. I hope that answered Priscilla's question. What else have we got here? Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's famous, oh, wait a minute. Before that, how big is the spirit soul? Where can it be found in the body? What is the size of the Lord within the hearth? I think she means heart. The Lord within the heart. Well, you're asking for material explanations for spiritual things. The spirit soul is minuscule compared to Krishna, but how big is Krishna? Krishna is bigger than the whole cosmos and yet smaller than the smallest atom. He's within everything and yet he's bigger than everything. He's outside of everything. And as his part and parcel, the spirit soul is simply a teensy-weensy bit of that. What is the sight of the Lord within the heart? Well, again, the Lord resides within your heart. He's small enough that you can't find him, but yet he's so big, he's the controller of everything. He controls and he watches everything that you do from within your heart. So in a sense, you're trying to say, is he this big? Is he this big? Is he this big? Is he that big? He's smaller than all of that, and yet he's bigger than all of that. That's the best way I can explain it. I hope that satisfies. Let's see. Daryl Robertson says, Namaste, sir. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati has a famous quote that he used to beat his head with a shoe many times a day. I know it was a metaphor, but what did he mean, and what did he do to stop those thoughts? Actually, as I heard it, it wasn't many times a day. He would beat his head with a shoe when he got up in the morning to focus his mind on Krishna. And when he used this as a metaphor for, that you cannot, when you're engaged in pure bhakti, when you're engaged in making an offering, you can't let your mind wander to, how good it's going to be later, or how much your wife or your daughter is going to enjoy this when, at breakfast or at lunch or whatever. You engage in certain service, certain activities. If you let your mind wander, then there's no real value to your service in that sense, because the whole point of sadhana bhakti is to focus the mind. And so Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati would say you need to take it seriously. You can't just let your mind wander. You have to beat your mind with a shoe to make it, bring it back into the line, with almost like a military, the way they treat a new recruit in the military. He's, you stand over there, you stay awake all night, standing at attention. You do whatever you have to do to get that recruit in line, to make that recruit do what they're supposed to do what their duty is in the military. Same thing with the bhakta. The bhakta, can't take it lightly. You can't let your mind wander into places that it shouldn't go, even though it will want to, simply because of the nature of the mind, the nature of the senses. So you got to, whenever you catch that, you got to bring it back. Beat your head, beat your mind with a shoe. Yes, it is metaphorical, but it's a good one. Don't let your mind rule you. You must rule your mind. The controlled mind is your best friend. The uncontrolled mind is your worst enemy. We talked about that last time. The uncontrolled mind will take you to the darkest places of existence. And you want to avoid that. Believe me, you want to avoid that at all costs. So whether it takes beating your mind with a shoe or slapping yourself in the face, or whatever it takes to bring you back. Again, I'm not sure that those things should be done physically, but the point is that you have to control the mind. You have to control your thoughts so that your mind can focus on Krishna and not wander onto stuff. You've got so many things to think about. Of the fish, I am the shark. Of the sun and I am the light of the sun and the moon. You can bring your mind back to Krishna in so many ways. So many ways. Looking at Krishna's lotus feet, looking at the deities in the temple, chanting the holy name, chanting japa, thinking about the glories of Krishna, that he's beyond the three modes of material nature. He controls all of that. He's the supreme controller. You can meditate on him in so many ways. Wally says, sir, my question is, in the Bible, it says God himself was never tackled his appearance in this world. I think that means something else. I don't think tackled is what you mean. And even Lord Jesus said he never, what? He never saying God's face or appearance. That you're saying that that you can't see God. Is that what you're saying? That according to the Bible, nobody has ever seen the face of God? Actually, Jesus didn't say that. He said you can't see the face of God and live, because God is transcendental. God is transcendental to life and everything. But again, Scripture is revealed to the people of a particular culture in accordance to their ability to understand. In the Muslim faith, there is no picture of God anywhere, not even a picture of Muhammad, because it was taught by Muhammad, who grew up with a bunch of people worshiping a bunch of idols that had no meaning, that to make an image of God is slanderous. It's it's offensive. Why is that? Because you have no idea what God looks like. You can't just make up an image of God. How upset was Moses when he saw them worshiping a golden calf? How can Jesus be expected to explain to people that have no idea even who he is, what to speak of who God is? But here we know. We know who God is. We know what he looks like. This is revealed in this part of the world because these people can understand it. And we are now among those people who can understand it. I mean, when Jesus was around, the concept of, the concept of a personal God was that, even like many Christians believe it, Jesus is God. They believe that Jesus is God. There's no understanding that Jesus points the way to God. There's the old Buddhist story about the guy says, where can I find light? And the sage points to the moon, and the guy says, what does your finger have to do with light? So the point is that the fool is asking a question. He doesn't see where the guy is pointing. He only sees the finger. And we're in the same way. We mankind, Western culture in particular, tends to, if God is a person, then he must be like a demigod. He must, look this way or be that way, or whatever they make up in their head. Making something up in your head, that is offensive. Making up God in your head, that is offensive. We have the unique capability or knowledge of who God really is, what he actually looks like, what his activities are, where he lives, how we can go there. All these things are revealed by the bona fide spiritual master, not mental speculation. That's the difference. It isn't mental speculation. It isn't, oh, maybe God looks this way, like in the Vatican, where Michelangelo painted God as this old guy because he's the oldest of the oldest. So he thought, he must be this old guy. It's all speculation, speculative, just, out of his imagination. He thinks God looks like this. But actually, God is the oldest of the old, but he never gets older than 18 years old. He never looks any older than that. And that's the beauty of Krishna. Let's see, someone else here says, after quitting the body, when the spirit souls did not succeed in entering the spiritual world, what happens to them? Is there a place, a dimension where they stay before getting another body? Boy, where were you last time? That's specifically the question that Arjuna asked. So where were you, Iris? You should have been here. But Krishna explains that for one who is unable to complete their devotional service, or unable to complete their sadhana, that they may, because of their accumulated good works, being that they were, seeking the truth and doing good things, they may take their next life as a demigod in the heavenly planets, and be able to have all kinds of enjoyment and so forth. But then Krishna says, but then they will take birth in the home of a devotee, the home of someone who's wise, someone who's devoted, someone who's a great sage. And from then they will take up from where they left off. Whatever advancement they made in that previous life, they will take up from where they left off. There's no loss or diminution. Okay, I hope that answers your question. Any other questions here? Let's see. I don't see any others. Anybody else have a question? You can open your microphone or write to me. How can one train in focusing the mind? Alan, again, you should know that. That's what we're talking about. That's everything that Krishna is saying. And I don't mean to point fingers at you, but that's what sadhana bhakti is. Sadhana bhakti, how can one train? By hearing, by chanting, by offering, by serving. All the aspects, all the different methods of sadhana bhakti. That is how we train ourselves in focusing our mind. Chanting the names of God, chanting on your beads is a wonderful way to focus your mind. Even though when you're doing it, in the beginning, when you're doing it, you're thinking about so many other things. But again, you have to beat your mind with that shoe, bring it back. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Oh my goodness, I wonder what my daughter is going to be doing at school. No, wait. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram. It's the way the mind works. The mind will constantly be trying to trick you. It's like that space between awake and asleep, where the mind starts going different places, and you're like, oh wow, and then you find yourself in a dream state, dreaming about whatever, Wally, I hope I answered your question about God's appearance. Sal Custodio, Haribol sir, will there be any effect for the living entities for the three Vishnus? What are the three Vishnus? Is that a singing group? What are the three Vishnus, Sal? Open your microphone and tell me what they are. I don't know what they are. The three Vishnus. Are you talking about Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva?
Siddhesvaras, the three
Yes.
Vishnus, Mahavishnu, Garbhodakasaya, and Kshirodakasaya Vishnu.
Oh, those three Vishnus. Okay, will there be an effect for living entity for the three Vishnus? Again, I'm sorry. I'm sure that if you wrote this in Tagalog, you'd probably be able to express yourself very nicely. I don't understand. The three Vishnus are beyond any material effect. So the short answer is that no, there is no effect upon the three Vishnus of anything that has to do with the living entity. So I'm not sure that that's the nature of your question. You've got, Mahavishnu, you've got Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and you've got Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. These three different aspects of Vishnu, they are beyond the material nature entirely. So I'm not sure what effect, I'm sorry, but I'm not sure what effect you're talking about. It's impossible for us to affect the three Vishnus. The demigods sometimes go to Vishnu Loka to plead for some situation, like there's a demon that's destroying everything, and Vishnu, comes to the rescue. But I don't know. Do you want to say it in Tagalog and maybe somebody else can read it and explain it to me? Something like that? Oh, wait a minute. Thank you for the answer, but I don't want to offend anyone and I don't want to offend God. I am a person seeking the truth of life. Sorry. Well, we're all in that same boat. None of us want to offend anyone, and we're all seeking the truth. So I don't understand your question, honestly, Sal. I'm sure that, if I understood the question, maybe I could give you a better answer. But, Vishnu is Vishnu. He's actually, the source of Vishnu is Krishna. Krishna is the source of all three of the Vishnus. So if you think that to give your question correctly would be offensive, then you're probably right. Don't write it. Any other questions? Anything else I can help with of any way, shape, or form?
Namaste.
Namaste.
Sir Siddhesvar. I'm just wondering how we, as a spirit soul that came from God, be affected by Maya, since God is all blissful and we are His spark, are by nature is also blissful. How come we persons be forgetful of this? Why are we here?
Well, that's the question of the day, isn't it? Somehow or other, we become envious of God's position. Maybe we're living in some aspect of the spiritual sky and we see that everything is going to God. Everybody's worshiping God. Everybody's giving God everything. Everybody's offering everything to God. And suddenly I begin thinking, why does he get all that? Why can't I get some of that? And bang, I find myself in the material world, taking birth as a child that wants to be God. We're all in that same boat, as it were, that same boat of enviousness. We're all envious of God. We're all thinking, why does he get all the glory and we don't get shit? I want my shit. I want my big house. I want my big car. I want my notoriety. I want my prestige. I want my name. I want my fame. I want people chanting my name. And that's how we end up here. Because we're a bunch of envious bastards. If you don't mind my French. So, you know, that's how we end up here. And then, you know, of course, the weird thing is that you go one lifetime, you don't get everything you want. So that means you have to go another lifetime. You don't get everything you want. So you go another lifetime, and pretty soon you've forgotten everything. I mean, there's no spiritual world. There's no place that you might have come from. There's no nothing. I mean, what does God mean to an insect, or what does God mean to a dog, or what does God mean to a squirrel or to a bird? Nothing. We are unique as human beings in that we finally, after how many bazillions of births, that we actually can grasp that question. And as Bhaktivedanta Swami said, and I think I've heard Prabhupada say that too, who cares how it is we got here? The fact is that we're here. And we got to get out. I mean, you know, you can speculate all you want about, you know, how did we get here? Why are we here? What's the nature of existence? Why is this material world the way it is? We can speculate about how we got here and all of that. And we can say, well, you know, God is all, yes, our very nature is full of knowledge and bliss, eternity, knowledge, and bliss. This is our real nature, but it's also the real nature of the dog and the lion and the bird and the cat and the flower and whatever. That is their nature as well. But they have all forgotten, just as we have forgotten. Because having taken birth in this world, we are covered by this idea that, oh, happiness is over there, or happiness is, oh no, it's over here, or no, it's in this hamburger, or no, it's in this bar of gold, you know, when actually it isn't. Real happiness is already there. Real happiness is when you are engaging your life, yourself, your heart in Krishna conscious service. Everything is engaging in God's service by their very existence. But we can engage consciously in God's service. That's the difference. That's the real yoga. That's the real root of it all. We can engage consciously in Krishna's service. Whether it's just glorifying him by chanting his holy names, or whether it's making offerings to him, or whether it's serving in some way, or whether it's, you know, engaging in Sankirtan, spreading this knowledge to everyone, every town and village, whatever it might be. That is the unique reality of being human. A squirrel cannot do that. A worm cannot do that. A crab cannot do that. Only a human being can engage consciously in God's service. Does that explain it for you? Does that help? You have more?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for your answer.
All right, Bo.
There is another one
Uh-oh.
question I would like to know.
Okay.
If let's say a true Christian who followed Jesus Christ, can that person be able to go to God also?
Will a person who follows Jesus Christ be able to go to God?
Change? Yeah.
The disciplic succession from Jesus has been lost. So while there are many saintly persons like Saint Francis, I love Saint Francis, he's amazing. If you ever read about the Christian saints, be sure you read about Saint Francis. He's absolutely amazing. I'm sure he's with Krishna. Whether he had to take another birth in some other plane or whatever, the point is that he was so devoted to Krishna, he was so devoted to God, he knew God so intimately that there's no doubt in my mind that he would go back to Krishna. As far as, you know, just being a Christian is concerned, there's so much confusion. Is Christ God? Is Christ the representative of God? And if he's the representative of God, then why did he say I and God are one? And is he, if I believe in Christ, does that exclude believing in Krishna? You know, there's so much confusion because there is no spiritual master. There is nobody that can give the correct interpretation of the biblical verses. I know how it is that Christ and God are one because my spiritual master has explained that to me. But if I try to explain it to my cousins who are like, you gotta know Christ. Do you know Christ? Have you been saved? I mean, come on now. You're my cousin. You ought to know better than that. Those are my cousins. And they're all like that. And they're all ignorant. And if I told them that the Bible is just the beginning scripture, they say, well, your so-called scripture is just the works of Satan. That's what it is. It's the work of Satan, and you shouldn't have anything to do with that. When are you going to wake up and understand that Christ is the only way? I mean, you know, that's not going to help. That's not going to help get them there. I mean, so the answer to your question is unlikely, but possible. But they'd have to be really, really far advanced. And I've met some Christians who are really, really, you know, wonderful, saintly people. They do exist. But again, without a spiritual master, very, very difficult. Okay, I'm going to move on here. I hope that answers your question. Some Christians speak of the place called purgatory. Is there really a place like that? Well, yes and no. Purgatory is like taking an animal body. Okay? Purgatory is like, you know, you work off your karma. You work off all the bad stuff that you did. That's why you had to take an animal body in the first place. And you somehow, through the laws of nature, you make your way back up to being a human again. And then from being a human, you can come to Krishna. You can come to God. It's the only, you can't do it when you're in a dog body. Again, you can't do it when you're in a virus body. You can't do it when you're in a body of an octopus or whatever have you. You know, you need to be, at least you need to be a human to, you need to be in a human body to be able to make that kind of advancement. Purgatory is what happens to people that are kind of, you know, stuck somewhere in between. Okay, that's the best way I can explain it. Haribol, is Artik mandatory in sadhana bhakti? Can you consider yourself practicing sadhana bhakti if you only do kirtan and japa? each aspect of sadhana bhakti is complete by itself. If you just simply chanted japa all day and that was all you did, you could come to Krishna. If you simply went out and chanted kirtan all day, that would be fine. But you have to eat, so you have to make some offering. And if you don't make an offering, then you're just eating sinfulness, and your mind is going a million different ways. And as far as Artik is concerned, you know, some people are attracted to doing Artik and some people are not. I never was. I didn't do Artik. I mean, even when I lived in the temple in Los Angeles, I didn't do Artik. I attended Artik, but I didn't do Artik. We offered my wife and I, Lakshmi Priyadasi and I, we offered our food on a little altar in our apartment, but we didn't do Artik. I do Artik now. It's a minimal Artik. It's a dupe Artik. I offer some water and some incense, because that is what I can do. And I'm ashamed, and I have to approach Krishna very humbly and very shamefully every time I do Artik, because this is all I wish I was offering you more. But, you know, and I'll be honest with you, this is something that I just started doing about 6 months ago. And even like 3 days ago, I emptied the deity's water, and then I got distracted by something and I started doing something. And then the next morning I woke up and realized that I hadn't offered the water or the incense that day. And, you know, I begged for Krishna's mercy and please forgive me. You know, I'm a complete idiot. I'm a complete fuck up. And I try not to do that again, you know, but there's you know, if an important part of your devotional service is being a pujari, then boy, you really don't want to forget. And the fact that I did forget shames me, makes me feel terrible. But you know, I'm just being honest that, you know, sometimes my devotional service is my own mind gets in the way. I get sidetracked by this or that, or, you know, I have to make a phone call, or I get a phone call, or whatever have you. And so, you know, that's the whole point of chanting Hare Krishna, of chanting on your beads, of chanting Gayatri, if those of you who are taking second initiation. That's the whole point of doing Artik, of giving your life some structure in the service of Krishna. So I hope that answers your question. Devi says, Namaste. When I do japa, I don't chant a specific number. Rather, I set aside a certain amount of time, and whatever I do in that time, I class as my rounds. Is it best to chant a certain number? The short answer is yes. It's best to chant a certain number because, I mean, it's okay. What you're doing is okay. But none of our gurus in our disciplic line have told their disciples, you know, spend an hour a day chanting japa, and that'll be fine. That has not been their instruction, ever, that I'm aware of. So what they do rather is tell you, you know, chant this many rounds. So what I would suggest at this point is that if you put an hour aside, let's just say you put an hour aside to chant your rounds, count the number of rounds that you do in an hour, and then make that your goal. Okay, if you can do what, maybe 8-10 rounds in an hour, then make that your goal. Okay, I will do 8 rounds every day, or I will do 10 rounds every day. Whatever time you've put aside, whatever you chant comfortably in that time, make that turn it around and make the number your goal. If you don't make that number, then try to make up that number later in the day. If you get sidetracked, like I so often am, if you get sidetracked by something, you got to do something, you got to be somewhere, you got to meet somebody, and you only get 3 or 4 rounds done, but you've made your commitment to Krishna, you've made your commitment to your spiritual master. I will do 8 rounds or whatever it is. Then make it up later that day. Don't make it up the next day. Well, you can, but that's better if you can make it up the same day. Because if you make it up the next day, then you might get lost and forget and da-da-da-da-da. But make it up the same day and set a specific number of rounds that you can do and do them. That is the best thing you can do, I believe. That's in keeping with what my spiritual masters have told me. Okay? Any other question? Wow, thank you, everybody. Sal, I'm not sure if I'm sorry, I never understood your question, but if you want to contact me later through, through Facebook or private message or whatever, you can do that. Maybe we can talk. Okay. Thank you very, very much for joining us. And I hope you'll be with us again on Tuesday when we'll go to chapter 9 and maybe chapter 10. Okay, thank you. Haribol. Namaste. Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
Haribol. Haribol, thank you.
Haribol.
Haribol, Alan, thank you very much. Thank you, May. If you want to say something, you have to open your microphone, and then you get a little red, a yellow square around you, and you can say it, whatever it might be. So if there's nothing else to be said, again, thank you so much. Namaste, Haribol. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. We'll see you next time. Hare Krishna.
Haribol. Wala na, Daddy.
Ha?
Wala na.
Wala na daw?
Ewan ko.
Bakit may nakasulat yun?
Hindi, teka lang.
Naka-live pa tayo, Sir Bala.
Oh, I forgot. Bala's going to chant. Good. Haribol, Bala.
Haribol. Swarupananda Paramhamsa Iti namine. Haribol.
Namo Krishna Krishna SIDDHASWARUPANANDA PARAMHAMSA Iti namine.
Bhajasri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhara Sri Vasudeva Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Haribol.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasudeva Bhakta Vrinda.
Hare Krishna
Haribol.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Haribol.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Rama, Rama
Pinipigilan.
Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare
Ayun ko na lang punta na.
Rama Rama.
Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Jaya Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda Haribo Jaya Jaya SIDDHASWARUPANANDA PARAMHAMSA Jaya Jaya SIDDHASWARUPANANDA PARAMHAMSA
Jaya Jaya Paramahamsa Jaya
Paramhamsa.
Jaya Jaya Srila Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Gurudev Jaya Jaya Srila Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Gurudev
Jaya
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 Jaya Krishna.
Jaya Jaya Srila Prabhupada Jaya
Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Staterisata Srishima Jagadguru SIDDHASWARUPANANDA Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai
Jai. Vishnu Padaya Krishna Abhistari Krishna. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Haribo, SIDDHASWAR Das, maraming salamat po. Haribo.
Thank you sa
Ate
lahat.
po.